Hi there, I'm Randy from Madrona Labs, and I'm making a video to talk to you today about Vutu. What is Vutu? Vutu is a sound analysis program that's going to let you make sounds in a partials format to be used with Sumu, our upcoming additive plus FM synthesizer. Let's take a look. Opening the app for Vutu, you see that there are three main areas in it: a source, partials, and a resynthesis area. Opening a file as source, we're going to start with a really simple file, 1osc.aif. It sounds like this. So I just hit play in the source row of buttons to play the source. Now if I hit analyze in the source row of buttons, it makes a partials. You can see the partials in the viewer, and the buttons are unlocked because now there's some partials which we can either synthesize or export. So we could export them right away, but maybe you want to hear what they sound like first. So let's synthesize it, and then we have a resynthesis that we can play. That sounds a lot like the original. I think it's good. We can export it, and instead of default.json, we can change it to something like 1osc.json. Go about our business. But what happens if we have a more complicated file? I've opened a file Huygens.wave, which is a Dutch person saying the name of a famous scientist.
Christian Huygens.
It's a very rich vocalization. So if I analyze it, I'm going to get a lot more partials than we had from a single oscillator. If we synthesize that, what will it sound like?
Christian Huygens.
It's intelligible, but it's kind of smeary. It's kind of spread out in time. So this is when you start needing the controls that we have in the lower left, which all affect how the analysis turns a source sound into partials. Let's go through each of these dials. The resolution controls the minimum spacing between any two partials in the output. Right now it's 40 Hertz. If we make the resolution big, reanalyze the sound, we get this.
Christian Huygens.
It's really sort of bloopy and synthetic sounding. We can turn it up even more.
Christian Huygens.
And get this. So if fidelity is our goal, clearly we don't want that to be much higher. Turning the window width up, though, it actually increases the resolution in time of each sample. So that sounds like this.
Christian Huygens.
Hearing our source again.
Christian Huygens. Christian Huygens.
I like it. We have great fidelity here. I would export this and use it in the synthesizer. Something that's interesting to see is the info that is printed every time an analysis is done. We get the file name, the time interval, 0 to 2.7 seconds, the number of partials that were made, about 3,000, the highest frequency, and the maximum number of active partials at any one time. That's what max active is short for. In this case, it's 59. Now, if that number is bigger than 64, we're in trouble as far as exporting something for Sumu, because Sumu is going to play back 64 partials at any one time in a single voice. So if we did an analysis, maybe this will do it. Yeah. This is a very crowded analysis and generated a lot of partials closely spaced.
Christian Huygens.
Sounds weird. And also we have 350 partials playing at once, which Sumu's not going to be able to do for us. So sometimes that happens, and you just need to use these dials to get the number down below 64. Another dial you can use to do that is the high cut dial. Right now, anything up to 20,000 Hertz will be reproduced. But if we turn this down to 2,000, we get a better view of the low end, and we don't get anything else.
Christian Huygens.
Okay, That's kind of fun. So obviously only 13 partials needed to make that. That's a way to get rid of some too, if you needed to do that. Likewise, the amp floor is another control that decides how quiet the information in the source is before it is captured into a partial. So if we turn this way up, reanalyze our sound.
Christian Huygens.
This is very intelligible and still only takes 31 partials to play back. So it's doing good. Now if we turn it down, this is minus 90 dB, and analyze, what we see is all the noise from the original file is being turned into partials.
Christian Huygens.
Actually sounds great with all of that in there. And still only 49 partials are used, so we're in good shape. But these are things we can play with for more complicated sounds. The low cut will strip out the low frequencies,
Christian Huygens.
so we get that telephone effect. And frequency drift is the last control. It's sort of the most complicated one. If the window width is high, often you generate a lot of peaky sounds that can start to sound noisy. With the drift high, it allows the partials to move in frequency very quickly. And with the drift lower, you can see a lot of those traces have been removed. So it's not going to play back the ones that were very quickly changing. And it might help smooth out some of those analyses that were making noisy, fast motion in the partials. Finally, I think it's been hidden maybe behind me, but we've got a volume knob that just controls nothing but the volume of the playback to your speakers while you're using the program, so it doesn't affect what goes into an analysis export at all. So that's a quick tour of Vutu, which you can use to analyze sounds and play them back in Sumu, coming soon. Actually, you can analyze sounds and play them back in any software you'd like to write, because the Vutu app is completely open source, and the format and everything. And on that note, I'd like to thank Kelly Fitz and Leopold Haken for making their Loris library open source. Loris is what does all the heavy lifting, and Kelly Fitz in papers originally came up with this idea of bandwidth enhanced analysis, which when I read it just made so much sense to me as a way to represent sounds for synthesis, and I'm excited about building a soft synth around it. I'd also like to thank Greg Wooler for helping me get the Loris library compiling and running, and for Utu, the command line program that we first got Loris running with. Greg thought of the name Utu because apparently Sumu is one kind of mist or fog in Finnish, and Utu is a different kind of mist or fog in the Finnish language. It's cool that they have a lot of words for mist or fog. And I just added a V because the command line app was not giving me enough feedback to make sound banks effectively for myself. So I had to make this GUI thing, which took a while, and I just added a V for Vutu. So here we are. I'd like to thank all of you who are interested in Sumu and waiting patiently for it to come out. And I hope you enjoy this major step on the road to Sumu, and maybe you want to play with it. So feel free to download it.